So this is my video about Game of Thrones. Well, it's pronounced A Game of Thrones or Game of Thrones. I say Game of Thrones because that's just how I do.
Yeah.
The series, which is by J.R.R. Martin, is originally called A Song of Fire and Ice. And people have recommended this book to me a few times, and I just looked at it like, what is this about? Like, I don't understand. And I would see a bunch of people suggested this book to me a long time ago before that other suggestion video, and I was just kind of like, I don't really know. When the show came out, I heard a lot of things about it. I'm just thinking, this show sounds awesome. And I found out there's a book based on it, so of course in my mind I'm thinking, oh, should I read the book first or watch the show? I downloaded the first 3 episodes because I had missed those, and then I read the book at the same time. So as I was reading the book, I watched the first episode, and I was reading it saying, this stuff is so accurate, and it really made me, like, respect the show itself, because literally I was reading it thinking, they got all this right, and what they took out, worked. And so I really started to appreciate Game of Thrones as not only a show, but as an adaptation. As an adaptation of a book, it is brilliant. I mean, it's one of the best book-to-TV adaptations in just a regular show block, not even like in a BBC series thing, that I have ever seen. And this show does take liberties and change things and mix things around, but you still get everything the book has to offer. And that is just amazing. And even though I've read the book, as you saw in my last video, the death of Ned Stark still upset me. And that's how you know an adaptation can be good and like the book and still work. And I just think that this show is just amazing. In terms of its genre, it is basically a medieval political drama in the beginning, and as it progresses, it becomes a political war drama in this whole kind of fantasy medieval place. And what I like about it is how realistic it is. I mean, there is blood. I mean, there's one episode where the mountain chops off a horse's head. I shit you not. It's one of the scariest things I've ever seen in my life. Because when he chopped off that horse, I was just looking at him just like, this motherfucker is serious. Like, this is some serious stuff. It's so well paced, so well put together. And even though you kind of don't, if you haven't read the book, it may seem a little bit confusing in the beginning because it just kind of puts you in. But it develops so beautifully. It is so well done. And the characters are all fantastic. Except Joffrey. Because they're so dynamic. I mean, if we go through the main characters. And my main characters, I'm going by... The main characters are all the characters that have POVs in this book. And it's not just Ned Stark. A lot of people, when his character was killed in the latest episode, were like, how can you kill him? He's the main character. He is not the main character. There are several main characters in this book. But we'll just go by the ones that are POVs in this book and as they reflected on the show. And what's so great and compelling and interesting about Ned is that he is the most noble, trustworthy guy in the show. He's a great man, but he is a complete fucking idiot. His death makes so much sense because even though he is a great soldier, a great man, a great father, and just fantastic overall, he doesn't know how to play the game. Okay? He don't know how to play the Game of Thrones. He don't. And that's why he died, because he doesn't understand that nobility does not win you a throne. And you think he would have noticed that by seeing how far Robert had fallen, but he doesn't seem to get that. And that's part of what I love about this series, because that's real. That's how it is in war. That's how it is in these kind of political conflicts. People will live and die, and nobility will not get you out the front door unless you get an army or some money to back your shit up. He's a great character, and his death really does set up the book and all the conflicts because you have lost the moral coil completely. And him being the noblest man, probably in the seven kingdoms, you have lost something that cannot be replaced. And that makes everything that happens afterwards even better. Who is the second to last child of the Stark family. And his POV is sort of telling you the in-betweens of what goes on after, Eddard leaves. And while his character isn't that compelling, it is interesting to see how he and his siblings are forced to step up to these thrones so early in life. Because in the show, they're aged up. Because in actuality, Dany is about 13. Sansa is 11. Jon Snow, I believe, is 14 in the beginning of this book, and so is Robb. Bram is about, I think Arya's 10, 9 or 10, so Bram's about 8, and Rickon, who's the future king, obviously is 3. So these are children, no matter how they look in the show, in the books, they are children. And they are forced to deal with these sort of heavy circumstances so early in life. And even though Bram doesn't really play a major role in this book, what he does give us is an insight of not just how children live in this time, but also because of his location, you see when the wildlings start to come in, how winter really is coming very quickly. And these bitches better be prepared for that shit. Cat is a really well-written female character because while she is a great mother, a great wife, she is strong, she is powerful, she also is petty, and she's vindictive, and she sort of has lapsed in judgment. I feel like that's something that all the Starks pretty much have because she's a great mother, but when you look at her interaction with Jon Snow, Ned's bastard child, you really see that while she is a great woman, she has her dark baggage. And I find that fascinating that these characters, and think about it too, you would think that she'd be like easily a heroine or easily a villain, but it's like, no, she combines both these characteristics. And I think for a woman, that's really wonderful to see because they try to make women very black and white sometimes. But no, she is extremely loving, but she can be very vindictive and very petty. I mean, the scene where Jon comes to say goodbye to Bram and she just kind of like, get the fuck out. You really want to hate her and be like, you are cold, but you know she's not. She just cannot get over this one fact that, he is the one blemish on her pretty much flawless marriage. And you want to hate her for that, but at the same time, as any woman can imagine, if your husband comes home after 1 year of being married to him with some other woman's child after you just had your own child, you wouldn't want that kid either. And in the beginning, I kind of hated her for that because I really liked Jon, and I was thinking, you know what? Cat, handle your shit. Because I totally get that about her. And I love her character. She's one of the really complex female characters. And I think her and Cersei are just two sides of the same coin. Because while people really hate Cersei, she is also a badass bitch. But she's not a POV character, so we gonna skip her over and go to Jon Snow, who is another POV character in the book. He is interesting because he shows us some of the culture of what's going on in the beginning about how bastards work and how Snow is the bastard last name for children born, in the north, and it's flower and stone for other kids. But what really works is how you see the Wall. I mean, the Wall is one of the very few fantasy elements, because while this is a fantasy novel, it's not very heavy, hardcore witches magic, in the series. It's very subtle, and there are very little things, and the Wall is one of those things. And what I think is really interesting is just how the Wall is so important, but yet so neglected. I mean, even as we're watching the show, we kind of look at it, it's kind of like, oh, they're at the Wall, whatever. But that's kind of how the mentality of everyone is in the Seven Kingdoms, because the Wall is the only thing keeping the Seven Kingdoms safe and secure. It is literally the last frontier. Like, if that thing goes down, they're screwed. And Jon is part of that army. You know, he is giving up his land, his family, the ability to have children, he has to be celibate from now on. He's giving all this up to protect this world, and it's kind of just thinking, what's so great about it? And then when you realize that winter is coming, and it's coming through that wall, and Jon is one of the people who is in charge of keeping this entire place safe, you root for him like a motherfucker, because you want that kingdom to be safe, and if Jon's on the front, you want him to step up to the plate and take control. And I think his character really shows how important the wall is. Tyrion is my homie. Oh my god. He is just... Peter Dinklage takes that character who is funny and interesting in the books, but just brings it up tenfold. The only Lannister I want to live in this series. Like, if he lives, yes! His brothers and sisters, cousins, all of them can just go. But he gotta live. Tyrion is just such a very, very dynamic character because he's an imp, he's a dwarf, and he's deformed, even though Peter Dinklage is pretty damn cute. He is dealing with the same baggage that Jon Snow is, but handles it in a completely different way. He has his intellect, he has his brain, he has his charisma. And, you know, the thing about Tyrion is not even just his character, but just how I can't help but think he's gonna be king. I don't know, somewhere in the back of my mind, I don't know this because I only read the first book and it's like 5 books long. I feel like he's going to be king. I feel like he'd actually be a great king. I love how Tyrion is the most like his father, Tywin Lannister, because Tywin is like a brilliant military genius. And I feel like Tyrion is that genius, but he's unrecognized because of his deformity. And you just get so into his struggle and his life that you just want to root for him so badly. This little child who's playing Arya right now in the show is flawless. Like, if they ever make a Recess live-action movie, and they should not, but if they did, she should play Spinelli because she is that good. She's a fun character, you know? And I think she and Sansa, I'll talk about her and Sansa in the same chord because I feel like it's very important to cover both characters. Almost everyone loves Arya. And almost everyone hates Sansa. Like, people actually love her or hate her when it comes to Sansa. And I think Arya is a very easy character to love because she's so badass and she's so dynamic and she's a tomboy. And honestly, this isn't to sound sexist or whatever, but people can relate to tomboy characters and like tomboy characters more than they like girly girl characters. That's just an observation, but I think that's really truth of how people feel about Sansa when it comes down to it. And the thing about Arya and Sansa is that Arya doesn't know how to play the game, but Sansa does. I think Sansa is the only really politically savvy Stark in the entire family, which is kind of sad, but she's the only one who really understands how politics works. Because let me say something. This girl is 11. I know the girl who plays her is tall. I think they age her up to maybe 13, but she is a child, and she really has no idea what she's doing. She meets Joffrey, and he's all golden hair. She's like, oh, he's so pretty. She don't know he's a devil spawn yet. She doesn't know that. Arya is like Ned. She sees honor, and she gets it, and she's more... The thing about it, too, that I think the show failed to do, and this is a minor quibble, is that Arya and Jon are supposed to be the only 2 kids with dark hair, because they look like their father, while Robb, Bran, Rickon, and Sansa all have red hair and look like their mother. And that shows how, you know, Arya and Jon are close because they both feel like they're outcasts of the family. Whereas, that's why Arya is so much more, you know, stronger because she's used to hanging out with Jon. Whereas Sansa and the other kids, you know, they have been sort of connected with their mother. And they have, you know, the Tully name and that kind of savvy to them. And that's why Arya is so different. Sansa, you know, she is just a little girl. And I think because Arya is younger, they're like, why can't she be like her? Sansa's her own person, but she also has her own hopes and dreams because she's different from her sister. She's older, and she'd be the first to marry, you know, the first to do that. So she'd be groomed to that more than Arya would. And so, while I get why people don't like Sansa, I feel like what they're forgetting is that Sansa is just the every girl in this situation. She's not doing anything wrong. She's just misinformed, mistaken. But as we're going to see, she will learn from that. And I think that makes her character really interesting. I'll never forgive her for lying on her sister. That was just fucked up. You can't lie on your sister like that. Homies over hoes. This character is actually my favorite character. Daenerys. Daenerys, the last dragon! I love her because I feel like she has grown the most in just one book. I mean, other characters are really strong in their development from what I've heard about the next books will continue, but Dany became such a full character in one book. In just one book, she goes from this really innocent child bride who's just sold off without any, indication to the Dothraki horde. And the Dothraki, even though in the book they're kind of more developed, in the show by itself, they are shown to be like these savage, wild people. But Dany takes control and she becomes the Khaleesi. She takes control of not just herself but her sexuality, and she becomes her own person. And there are no spoilers in this video because I'm not spoiling it for y'all because that's wrong, and I want you guys to enjoy the show as it comes along. But, she becomes a leader in her own right. Even as just being the Khaleesi, she becomes strong, and what happens to her brother is fantastic. That was just a great scene. Someone put this on a site about the Targaryen family, about how basically you can flip a coin and one person will be crazy and the other person will be sane. And with Daenerys she is brilliant, and I can see it in this book. She is brilliant and she is smart, but she's also a little silly. She's got a little bit of that craziness in her, and I can just tell by the way she kind of wants to let that witch into her house and whatever. She's got her flaws, and I feel like that makes her a very well-rounded character. She's still learning, she's still developing, and she still has that craziness. It's still part of her blood, part of her genes. And her story isn't even finished. She's gone this far in one book. How farther will she go? And just in general, there are other characters that I really, really love. I love Braum. Braum is hilarious in this lesson. Shay, I like. I think Cersei's a very interesting character. I don't like her though. But I feel with every single character, there is no black or white. It is all gray. There's something to love about every single character except Joffrey. He needs to die because he's a little inbred cunt. Anyway, every character has that kind of dynamic to them, and it makes it very interesting to watch. And these episodes are just so well done. I mean, this season's only gonna be 10 episodes long, and in that 10 episodes, I feel like I have learned so much about these people. I'm so invested in them that I know the series can go on for a long time if this is how they're gonna be. I mean, this series has been fantastic. And when the last episodes comes out, I'll just start talking about all the episodes and all kind of stuff like that. But basically, this is for people. If you have not watched this show, you need to. It is really one of the best shows out there. I mean, this has everything. It's got doesn't have that much romance, which I kind of like. It has a little bit of that, but it's got, great characters, blood, sex, really real plot intrigue. And I feel like once you start watching it, you won't want to stop. There are a few things that, people kind of got iffy about in the pilot about how the Dothraki have been portrayed. But when you really start talking to them and watching the show, it's a lot more than what it appears to be. So if you're not watching Game of Thrones, watch it. Don't even have to worry about reading the book. Watch the show, and then you can read the book later. Because honestly, great adaptation of this. You don't even really need this. This is great to have, and I love reading the book so I have an even more depth to the character, but really, what you're not missing a whole lot else. A little bit maybe on the relationship between Cal and Dany, Drogo and Dany, but overall, excellent adaptation. This show proves to me you can do a great adaptation of a book to a show with the same outcomes and same plot developments, and people will still be emotionally invested when shit goes down. It's all about execution. And even though I love True Blood, I really wish True Blood could do with the books that they're based on what this show has done with its book source. gotta watch Game of Thrones. It is the perfect viewing experience, unless you're queasy and you don't like to look at boobs and weird testicles. Other than that, what are you missing? Also, I wanted to give a shout out to Otaku Assemble, who gave me a good shout out on his video, so just sending it back for you, brother. Thank you very much for that. Check out his videos. He's done a video about every single episode of Game of Thrones. They're long, but they're funny. And it goes in a lot of depth, more depth than I'm going to go into, because I feel like if people want to talk about episodes, you leave it to me in the comments. But overall, love the show. Please, if you're posting comments about it, no book spoilers. None. Anything past the 9th episode, don't talk about it. Out of respect to those who have not watched the show yet. And I know usually I don't talk about that because I'm the spoiler queen, but really, let them have their fun, because you know what? Us readers, we know shit's gonna hit the fan. Let them enjoy wondering what it's gonna be about. Anyway, love you guys. Watch Game of Thrones. Bye.
Yeah.